somewhere, which in this case an SQL database, but might be something else. There is a marked improvement in this architecture, because in this way we are, at least in principle, able to share this map here, and so to have several users to use the same map. So web mapping, that is distributed cartography, means the possibility by the cartographer to update a shared map. The tool is the one which is connected with the word web. So it is necessarily a browser that is used to interact with the server, and using the code downloaded from the server to interact with SQL database, as I told you before. The server describes the web page that incorporates what is found here, that is the map. The code which travels to the user gives the user the possibility to get in touch with the SQL database. The instructions to get in touch with the SQL database are in the software that is downloaded from the web server. And at this point, the user can interact with the SQL database with a map and change it. With respect to QGIS, we have several possibilities. One of them, important, is that we do not need to install anything, because we find everything on the web, that is in our browser. So we do not have to perform this complicated thing, which is installing a package from the internet. We have no problems of computing capacity, no specific problems. Of course, our computer need to be able to carry out the computation, but much of the work is on the database that has to keep the data and process it. Since there is no installation required, there is no dependency on the operating system. And it turns out that the result is adaptable to different devices. That is, we can use the same web service from our PC or from a smartphone if the service is well designed. Sharing is in fact built in. Since it runs on the web, it allows forms of sharing. So in the end, so we miss the possibility of protecting what we do, what others did. So there is some need to restrict access to information, even if we will see that in the case that we are going to see now, this does not happen. And so, in fact, the data are open, and you can damage it if you want. One side point regarding this is that we need a specialized library to write this kind of code. And if this library is sufficiently well written, this library can be used by others. And we will come to this point in the close of this session this afternoon. By now, let's see how such library is done. It needs to be compatible with JavaScript, because web pages run JavaScript. And should embed the complex functions that are used to make maps. The library that we are talking about is named Leaflet, and it gives the possibility to do what I told you before, that is, interact with a remote database. And through this, the user can modify the map, the shared map. So the structure is what I told you before. There is a user who downloads a certain web page, which contains a program that interacts with a PostGIS server and a raster repository, so that you can manage your map. We explore a case which is OpenStreetMap, which is the same source from which you derived your raster before, which is an open source service that is made for crowdsourcing. That is, it is made to allow people to add points to maps. When I open the service at www.openstreetmap.org, you obtain on your browser a map, which is in fact in a public database. Here, the architecture is the following. I have a web server, the user, and the SQL database. The point is that I have a public database which is freely accessible, so that everyone sees what I am doing, and this may be a problem. I cannot work, in fact, in a private space. I have an online editor which is called ID to perform my work and easily create features that will appear on my map, and later on I can save. Now do the following, and I'll do that on my own. Open the browser at this address. Now I open okay, this is what I see, and we may start from another picture at the beginning, and you can go in the detail. When I have reached a sufficient level of detail, you see the edit will be enabled. See? And I have now the possibility to add the features. Of course, to sorry, to get to this point, I have to register a new account, and I recommend you to do so if you want to use UMap later on. But you can also access simply, but you cannot save your work, the work that you do. If you want to create a point feature, you need to zoom in until the modify appears. not to select, modify, edit. Ooh. Sorry. There is edit pressed now. I have the edit enabled, and I can decide what to add. Maybe a point, line, or area. Very easy. Much easier than we have seen using QGIS. Say that I want to add a point. I can select the place where I want to place the point. If I place it on the street, I have different choices about the nature of the point. Crosswalk, traffic signal. You see, I have a lot of features, kind of features that I can add. This may be features of social interest, like a crosswalk, for instance. And in fact, OpenStreetMap is done for this. I can add another point, for instance, here. And you see that I have different things that I can, features that I can add. So it depends on where you find your, you place your point. Maybe wetland, bar, or restaurant. Hit the point button, turns blue. Select a point on the map with a mouse click. And here you can place whatever you like. For instance, I can place here a bar, say which is the name of the bar. It's the address, hours, COVID, and all the rest. So you see that it is a very much focused tool, which is useful to enrich a shared map with details. You can cancel what you have done if you do not like, and line, just in case it is needed to, but you mark a starting point and you mark the final point. And next again, and again. Double click and you will close. This might be a road, rails, path, waterway, whatever. An area, similar. Once you have reached your result, you double click and the area is closed. So it's essentially over. And now there is time, short time for your activity. My map was already focused on the place I indicate on the slides. There is a town whose name is Francavilla al Mare, south of Pescara. Look for it in the map. See this place, Lido Merope. Find it, and there is a bar and some facility recorded about it, but there is not the beach that gives the name to the Lido. So mark this beach as you like, and put a name on it, and whatever you can play with this tool. What you shouldn't do is to save what you have done. Don't do that, because in this way you at least propose these changes. The changes are not immediately accessed, as you may imagine, are not immediately accessible to the public, but will be screened by someone which will give a look if this is reasonable or not. So don't save. Simply play with it without going into details, and keep in mind that these resources are public. So if you need a source for your maps, instead of going to private maps or maps shared by Google under the control of Google, you can use these kind of maps, which are sufficiently rich and useful. So again, I stop here and give you the time to play with this map. Again, I give you 10 minutes for this, and we will meet again at 11:35 about if there are questions. But as you see, the interface is much simpler than the one we used before. So
Augusto, posso approfittare per chiederti una cosa? No. Ok. Non approfitto.
So we start back and we proceed. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So we proceed and we go in the direction of controlling the sharing, because we have seen that a limit of OpenStreetMap um, is exactly the fact that the map that we manage is so much shared that we can't afford to make changes if we are not pretty sure that we are making a good thing, the right thing. We would like to be free to have our own map modified as desired and so on. Such maps should be recorded in outside of our computer, because if we want to share these maps with others, that we need to have them in a place that is accessible to everybody, which is the cloud. So the title, which is Sharing Maps, the GIS Cloud. We have seen that we cannot add new layers to OpenStreetMaps. We can enrich OpenStreetMaps, but not have our own data on it. On the other hand, we have resident applications which have only local application or only local data and cannot easily share things. There are clearly tools that provide this kind of intermediate point, that is, allow the modification of data that are kept public, but in a sense controlled by the user. The topology becomes more complex. We have several users that share a common GIS server, and this GIS server gives us access to several maps. Formerly, we had just one in one single database. Here we have several, possibly on the same database, we don't know. And the users can use any of these maps that are available. So here the server is intermediate. This is a change. If you remember, before there was a Y with a server here, with a user here, a server to download the data, to download the program, and a way to interact with the data. Here we have the server, which is an intermediate point between the user and the data. The server implements access restrictions and property. That is, this is my map that I share with someone else. And this is completely different with what happened with OpenStreetMaps. The UMAP service is a public service of this kind. The project is rather recent, dated 2014, which means more or less synchronized with the raising of cloud technologies, which is around 2010. And the source is open source. The code is open source. This means that you could install your own UMAP service on your own server, if this is of any interest. It uses OpenStreetMaps layer as a raster. And in fact, the two projects are tightly related. And this time, users can import and view vector layers. So it is possible to import data from outside in various formats, connect with external databases where they can find other data, and create new layers that will be hosted in the UMAP infrastructure. That is, UMAP provides the storage where you can keep your maps. And you may have your map, the one you own, the one you exchange with others, the one you include in your website, and so. We can add pop-up nodes that are very nice to see, that can help the utilization of UMAP for public presentations. The pop-up can show text, simple text, or images, or content of web links. For instance, movies or shorts. The generated map can be edited, shared by a restricted group of users. That is, you have restricted sharing. Not everybody, but just the people which is in charge of this. And there are some that can edit data, others that I can just look at this. Registration is, as usual, appropriate, not essential, but you see my case formerly, I told you that it was not necessary to edit, to sign in, but when I tried to edit the OpenStreetMap, they immediately asked me for for registration for my credentials. To see how this works, go to this address here, and I'll do the same and show you in a moment. And here we are. I copied here simply the URL that I gave you. You see, OpenStreetMap is in the domain name, which reveals that there is a strong relationship between the two projects, UMAP, OpenStreetMap. France, which is an indication that the project is in fact French. In order to access, here I have already made access before, you need to provide the credentials, and if you created your credentials for OpenStreetMap on the during the last session, you can use these credentials to access also OpenStreetMaps. To start playing, you ask to create a new map. And this is what you get. The background, the raster, is taken from OpenStreetMap. You can change it. And I will do that because you see here, Sienne stand for Siena, and many other names of town are Francisized. And okay, I have nothing against French, but okay, I like Italian names for Italian towns, and so I have changed my raster to an OpenStreetMap raster, and here is the result. We can go wherever we want, and when you open your visualization, you are already in an editing session. So you have all the tools here to edit your map. Point, a series of points, an area. They are the usual ones, the usual features we know. And editing here, the one I just told you, and the lower box is for the management. Here I have several ways to manage my data. We saw before the way to exchange to swap the raster layer, and we have a way to manage the layers I create, and important, the possibility to import data from outside and to introduce some kind of sharing restrictions. Here I suggest to look for Pisa, to go to Pisa. We select a feature that we want to create and proceed as we have already learned to do with OpenStreetMap. This, I place a point here. This is the Ponte di Mezzo. And this is my description. Okay, by the now, I just save my point. I can mark a multi-line. And the same for a shape of any, okay, whatever. Okay, point line area. I'm browsing now the slides. Single click, series of clicks, name, description of the feature. You can update a feature, simply click on it, then select the pencil here, and I can update. Very important when you have finished to do things to disable modification, because this is the only way to, you have to see more things occurring, to see how people will see your map here. But before going to that, it is of interest to see the capabilities you have in the description, because here I placed simply a piece of text, but you can add more than that. Click the question mark here, and you see that you can format, which is not so interesting, in a markup style. Not much interesting. More important, the fact that you can include a link in your text, in your description, so that you can relate this point here with something that is in the web. This is very powerful, a very powerful tool, because in this way you open your map to include everything which is on the web and to relate to anything that is on the web. For instance, a better description of the place, or a image with two brackets, braces, excuse me. You specify an image to be included in your mm, description, and an iframe, which is quite complex, because it is a complex frame in HTML, with a given dimension. So there is, in fact, a lot of things that you can do, and you have the possibility, in fact, as a link, to include a movie which will be attached to the point you want to you describe. So extremely powerful, and useful for, again, presentation, documentation, and all such things. For instance, here I suggest to place this. This is a daffodil. How to see it? I have associated it with Ponte di Mezzo. First I save. Next I disable editing. Next I go here. I click, and the daffodil appears. And okay, a generic link, not much interesting, but anyway, we are here to exercise. And so we select this. Excuse me, I have to go back. Close this. Edit. And edit. And let's place this link here. Let's place a title here. Something wrong in the markup I specified, but here you see what was the okay, this is Google. And here is a movie that you can link according to the descriptions found in the question mark. I want to edit. Click here. Maybe I need to add a space here. No. Save. disable editing, close this. Okay, this time the title is rendered as I want, and here is a time lapse. You can imagine how this can be extremely useful, of impact for a lecture, presentation, or whatever kind of communication you have to do, which is related to um, geographical aspects. We can create just to we are just browsing the possibility of this tool. We can create a slide show of what we of the features we have created. You remember I created first this one, next the road here, the walk, and finally this area without meaning. And I can create my slideshow using a specific configuration. You can play with all the rest, but here we concentrate on the slideshow. We select it on, and we have 1 second, which is a little bit short, but anyway. We may have smart transitions, so we will see later what happens. And this we will decide whether the slideshow will start as soon as the map is loaded. That is, the visitor will see the slideshow as soon as it enters the page or not. And now we save, we disable. And you see that I'm not doing anything, and every second the the show steps from one to the other. And this goes on. There is no way to reorder the at least I've not found a way to reorder the slides in my pack. So in case you need to design first what you want to show and next do the right thing. One relevant point, in fact, the main reason for which I have introduced this tool is possibility of sharing. Sharing is just one option. We may want to embed my map inside a site or whatever, or text, and possibly export my data in a way that can be imported in another tool. That is not just saving in a format that can be understood by UMAP, but in a format that may be exported to other tools, for instance, QGIS. And to obtain this result, I'm browsing the slides, but show you on the map, on the tool. You need to go here and press the key. This enters a menu that offers you the possibility to share things. Oops, excuse me. It happens that it takes time for this function to start, so not surprised that doesn't start immediately. But once you have obtained the screen, the window that allows you to change owners and editors of the map, okay, you can do that. I will not wait for this to happen, but if you are really interested in that, you can do. Um, let's go to the next points. Uh, Maybe the point is that I have not recorded this map, but it doesn't matter. If you want to embed your map in a web page, you can press this icon here. And here is an iframe that allows you that you can copy from here, paste inside your website on your page, on a page of your website, and in this way you will see the map you are working on the website. If you have a project and your project has a home page, and your project is some way involved in a geographical thing, you can embed this map easily as an iframe in your web page. Otherwise, you can download the data. There are several ways. Full map is the less interesting, because in fact you can also download your data as GeoJSON. You remember it was one of the formats that I told you about during the first session. GPX, that is widely exportable to any GPS device or service that is able to manage GPS recordings, or KML. KML is the proprietary standard representation for Google Maps. So you can export your things to Google Maps if you want, using this option here. And you download your data. Let's give a look to the GeoJSON representation. Okay, here, not very meaningful, but it's not of interest now. It isn't downloaded. And here is the GeoJSON representation of my map. Here you see the complex description that I gave of the Ponte di Mezzo. Of course, this is understandable only if your service, the service to which you are providing this information, is able to understand this syntax here. But in principle, you have all this available in a different tool. This is standardized, and this is standardized too. And these are the 5 points in my walk along the Arno. And this is the polygon that was with 5 vertices. Okay. I've shown you how to export in GeoJSON, and you have sent. The short URL, I do not see it here right now. Possibly it has been moved somewhere else. We have given a look to the GeoJSON that has been produced. And now we are finishing. If you want to try to use UMAP to some extent, first of all, geolocate yourself. I've given here a shared map. If you go to this address here, I can show it on the map. This is the address, the URL that I have included in the slides. You can go here and you simply find a map. If I want to, well, first I will replace the layer, and next I can select, for instance, my place, and I invite you to do the same. Well, okay, you do not necessarily need to place exactly where you live. For instance, I will mark here the station, the railway station in Trento, which is not far from where I live. Maybe I place here my name. Okay, if you do the same, okay, first, if you access that same map, you will see my point marked on it. And if you want to add your points on the map, you can do the same. And so in the end, we will have a look, we have a view of where we come from, where are we living, or whatever. Just place a point for a place you like or such. Okay, I leave you another 10 minutes for this, so we can discuss what happened in 10 minutes from now. Then there will be the break for the lunch, and we will meet again in the afternoon. The program for the afternoon is first a tool to automatically record our place, our displacements using a smartphone. So this is, if I remember, the fourth aspect of what a GIS system can do. Next, I will show you again using QGIS, kind of advanced feature, which consists of georeferencing a map. That is, I take a map which is not georeferenced, for instance, a touristic map or a map that contains data that is not in my own map, and I superpose and I create a raster from this map, a raster which is a raster, meaning which is georeferenced. And the last topic that I will cover in the afternoon is programming, that is using the leaflet library that I introduced while speaking about OpenStreetMap. Using this technology, this library, in order to implement a new service. This last step will be treated cautiously, because it can be very difficult or too difficult for the unexperienced, and I guarantee you that I will keep things sufficiently simple so that even those that have a very mild experience in programming can at least understand what's happening and maybe have a suggestion for something to learn. Okay, now I stop and I wait for new points to appear on the map. I will be back to you at 12:20, just to close the morning session.
Cosa?
Prego.
C'ho delle mappe di un catasto napoleonico che un tirocinante di informatica umanistica mi ha, alta definizione, mi ha lavorato con Photoshop per farle combaciare, cioè per creare un layer
Una sovrapposizione.
in realtà non è un layer unico perché sono tante,
No.
però insomma diciamo che per metterle in continuità, no? E georeferenziarle su con dei punti attuali. Però è tanta roba, cioè è tanto, sono pesanti. E vorrei creare invece un servizio utile, soprattutto creare qualcosa in realtà che potrebbe essere anche scaricato e attivato, ecco, quello, perché queste immagini me le hanno date l'Archivio di Stato di Genova, sono stati gentilissimi, mi hanno dato tutte le immagini gratis. Volevo creare qualcosa che fosse usufruibile anche all'esterno, però c'ho il problema che è una quantità impressionante, cioè è un po' tanta roba.
Cosa significa tanta roba?
Aspetta che te lo dico, un attimo che cerco le mail.
Allora, intanto ti dico che fare il lavoro con Photoshop, mettiamola così, non è il massimo.
Ma non lo so se l'ha fatto con Photoshop,
No, perché con Photoshop puoi sì morfare l'immagine per riuscire a sovrapporla, però poi non hai un raster e quindi non ci puoi lavorare.
Dunque. No, Massimiliano Grava mi diceva che aveva caricato l'ultima volta i file su ArcGIS, no? Il problema che mi diceva è che non possono essere visualizzati da chi abbia la licenza del Pro e UNIP non ha la licenza per caricare i dati su cloud di Esri. Non riesco a trovare. Tu c'hai per caso la licenza che te lo
No.
link? No.
No.
Vabbè, allora mi aggiorno.
Però mi sembra, cioè non mi sembra la strada. Mi sembra la strada. Cioè, voi avete queste mappe. Allora, io oggi pomeriggio faccio esattamente georeferenziazione.
Sì. No, ma l'hanno già fatto. Allora, questo è un lavoro.
Ok, ma quello che avete ottenuto, se ho capito bene, sono delle foto.
È un raster più vector.
È un raster più vector.
Sì.
E a questo punto.
Io posso fare il download, ma non posso aprirlo su web come GIS. Lo potrei se avessi una licenza ArcGIS Pro, ma non posso.
Ma faccio fatica a capire.
1400, quindi è un giga e mezzo.
Vabbè, non è tanta roba.
1433, dico giusto, un giga e mezzo?
Megabyte?
Sì.
1000 rotti megabyte. Sì, è un giga, ma non è tanta roba.
Ho capito, ma come faccio? Ti mando il link.
No, aspetta, no,
Sì.
ci faccio poco. Però ti dico, una cosa del genere, puoi metterli su un database più o meno tuo, eventualmente di cloud, e poi fare accesso utilizzando un servizio che puoi prendere già fatto, oppure puoi fartelo tu, con quello che vi racconto nella terza parte del pomeriggio.
Vabbè, vuol dire che ti seguirò nel pomeriggio.
Mi spiace, ti tocca.
No, anche perché appunto ci abbiamo tutto fatto, ma
io penso che la scelta sbagliata sia quella di appoggiarsi ad ArcGIS. Occhio e croce, poi devo ancora finire di capire i
poi
dettagli.
mi download un formato MPKX. Chissà che formato.
PKX. Ok. Sì, però tu questa cosa qui dovresti essere in grado di farne un upload su una piattaforma che ti consente poi dopo di scaricarlo, di lavorarci sopra.
Ma io non è che più che lavorarci sopra, cioè
Dare la
lavorarci sopra,
possibilità ad altri.
uno se lo scarica e se lo gestisce. Più che altro volevo che fosse possibile girarci intorno, vederlo, insomma,
Certo.
cosa.
Mm,
C'è già 155 download.
poi ne possiamo parlare, possiamo vedere un tantino meglio. Detta così, credo che il collo di bottiglia che vi siete trovati è quello di utilizzare un servizio che è a pagamento, non è.
No, ma perché non ne trovavamo un altro.
Certo. Sì, ma alla fine quello è il collo di bottiglia, mettiamola così.
Okay. Vedo pochi punti e i ragazzi
Sì, no, difatti soltanto un punto. There is just 2 points on the map. Thank you to Anna Gili.
It's not so
Current
difficult.
marked.
So please, let's do it. It's important to learn how to build a map.
In the afternoon, I will tell you about recording a walk. And in principle, what I had in mind initially was to ask you during the lunch time to do, in fact, a short walk using this tool. But okay, I've not yet told you about the tool, so we have to switch this in the afternoon. But again, I will ask you again to add some how to say, contribution to this map using your own data. Who? Someone decided to disappear, and now there is another point here from Ravenna. Okay, much more easy. You do not need to place exactly your address or say disclose personal information. You just place something you like.
Qualcuno ha messo Ghent, ma è scomparso.
Anyway, the meaning of the exercise is that we are sharing data real time using a free infrastructure and a free service. Okay, this is the basic interest of the exercise. I can later make a movie of this. Sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, we are here.
I'm during. I mean, I'm Anna. I'm totally. It's not everything about these Gs and maps is new for me, so maybe I'm just ignorant. But I wanted to know if there are similar tools also for designing maps of, I don't know, ancient places. I mean, using different places as a
Okay.
reference as those which are now here.
Yes, there are tools that help you to design maps. Imaginary maps, I mean, or even maps, ancient maps, something that is not directly related with reality.
Anna, explain you better.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I will try. For example, if I wanted to play, sorry.
Bye.
For example, if I want to place on a map, I don't know, different places where different manuscripts have been found, but they do not always correspond to cities which are still present now, or to libraries which are no more active now. And I don't know, or maybe the same thing with places of ancient Rome, of ancient Greece, or something like that.
Okay. I can answer you. Okay. First thing you should probably do is to take a map of the time, a graphic map that is not a georeference map of the time you are interested in, and georeference it so that you end up with a raster with coordinates on it for each cell. That's the first step. Next, you add your places, and you can do that exactly in the same way I did. We are doing that right now. You see here I have a choice of rasters, which is not so extended, but you can easily create your own raster. I'll show you. I'll show that in the afternoon. You can create your own raster using an old map, for instance. I will show in the afternoon how to georeference a map showing old French tribes.
Okay.
And you can do what you want.
Okay, no, that's what. Okay, I just needed to wait. Then, sorry.
Okay, but that's curiosity. You will see that there is a perspective in a direction, and you try to understand if it is
there are a lot of perspective, really. Yes.
Good. And there are also already georeferenced maps that you can find around. Some of them are historical, some of them are imaginary, the Lord of the Rings, and similar. Their georeferencing is important because in that way you can compute, make calculations, mark things as if it were real ground, say. Oh, okay. We have Ruben Selani en Belgique. I remember that last time during the last edition of this summer school, we had something from South America listening. The point in Ghent may have disappeared because somebody simply erased it. This is my one. If you want to test, I will not be offended about this, but you can just erase me. I can replace the point later on. So it is not difficult. It is a shared map. So there must be protection against bad utilization of the data. Okay, let's close the session right now. How do you say, Vittore and Enrica?
Okay, no, that's fine. I mean,
And again, I invite those that have not yet added their point of interest in the shared map to do so. And okay, see you again in the afternoon.
okay.
Okay, see you later. Bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice
See you later.
Enrica, she
Thank
says.
you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.